Chosen one. Listen. Heaven pauses the noise around you because this moment is not random. It is divine appointment. You've been drifting through days trying to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You have worn masks, silenced your heart, and called it survival. But heaven calls you back to remembrance. This is not the end of your story. It's the reintroduction of your true name. There's a stirring in your spirit because deep down, you know this world has tried to bury what heaven planted. You have been walking with a heavy heart, carrying questions no one around you could answer. You've wondered, why does everything feel louder to me? Why do I sense what others ignore? Because you were never meant to move like the rest. You were meant to move with heaven's rhythm. Somewhere inside, the child who once dreamed still waits for you. The one who looked at the stars and knew there was purpose beyond pain. That pure, radiant part of you never died. It only hid behind fear. Now heaven is pulling back the veil, whispering, "It's safe to be seen again." The world tried to convince you that softness was weakness, that silence was defeat, that hope was naive. But those lies crumble under divine truth. You carry sacred gentleness, heaven's own power disguised as tenderness. It is your compassion, not your armor, that makes darkness tremble. You were never too much. You were always exactly enough. Every hardship, every delay, every hidden season, none of it was wasted. You've been forged in silence so that when your voice rises, it will carry authority born from pain. You are not overlooked. You were preserved. The things that broke others could not destroy you because you are chosen. Every storm that came against you only proved that you are marked for more. Beloved, you've mistaken endurance for punishment, but it was training. Heaven was shaping your resilience, refining your discernment, and sharpening your awareness. That's why you could never stay where comfort tried to keep you. You outgrew spaces that refused to evolve with your calling, and though loneliness whispered that you were forgotten, heaven was whispering, "Not yet, be still. Something greater is forming." The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 29, verse 11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you hope." You see, chosen one, heaven has never been uncertain about you. While you were doubting your path, heaven was mapping it. When you thought it was over, it was only a redirection. Every closed door protected you from rooms too small for your calling. You were not rejected, you were rerouted. You are not too late, you are right on time. You were born with a sound that disrupts darkness. That's why chaos has followed you. It recognized your voice before you even learned to use it. Every sleepless night was a signal from the divine, reminding you that you are not built for mediocrity. You are a vessel of divine fire, a carrier of light. Now heaven speaks clearly. Wake up, remember, and rise. Stop agreeing with the lies that say you are not enough. The same breath that spoke galaxies into being breathes within you. When you step forward in faith, mountains move and atmospheres shift. The world doesn't need another imitation. It needs the unfiltered, unapologetic version of you that heaven designed. Chosen one, you've walked through valleys of confusion, but the fog is lifting. You've endured rejection, but it was protection. You've cried in silence, but heaven heard every sound. The battle for your identity ends tonight because remembrance has arrived. Take this as your confirmation. You are still chosen, still loved, still destined, still powerful beyond comprehension. And even when you forgot, heaven never did. The light you thought was gone is still burning. It just needed this moment to breathe again. If your spirit is awakening as these words touch your heart, don't just feel it, respond to it. Let heaven see your yes. Lift your head high. Breathe in deeply and say within yourself, I remember who I am. Then, as an act of faith, like, share, and subscribe, not as routine actions, but as declarations that your awakening has begun. And when you do, write 777 inches, the comments. Let it stand as your prophetic agreement, heaven's number of divine alignment and completion. This is not just a video or a message. This is your reminder. Heaven is calling your name again. You are not forgotten. You are the chosen one. The hidden battle for your identity. Chosen one. You've been living in a war most people can't see. It's not a battle of fists or fire. It's a war for your memory, your voice, your divine name. Since the moment heaven marked you, the enemy has tried to convince you you're ordinary, but you are not. The real fight was never about your circumstances. It was about your identity. You've felt it in the tug of doubt that visits right after you dream. You've heard it in the whisper that says, "Who do you think you are?" That voice isn't your own. It's the echo of every lie designed to bury the truth. God spoke over you. Because if the enemy can make you forget who you are, he doesn't need to destroy you. He only needs you to live beneath your name. From your earliest years, the assault began subtly. Words from others chipped away at your confidence. Disappointments taught you to settle. Religion may have told you to shrink so others could feel comfortable. But heaven never asked you to be small. Heaven asked you to remember. You are not defined by what they said, or what you lost, or who left. You are defined by the one who breathed life into your spirit. You were formed with intention, crafted with authority, and anointed with purpose that cannot be revoked. The enemy may twist your memories, but he cannot rewrite your destiny. When the storms came, you thought you were being punished, but you were being prepared. Heaven was allowing pressure to reveal what hell feared most: your resilience, because you carry something dangerous to darkness, truth. And truth remembered is power restored. Every time you rise after a fall, you announce to hell that amnesia has failed. You may not realize it, but the moments when you doubted yourself were the very moments heaven was strengthening your discernment. The silence wasn't absence, it was refinement. You were learning to recognize the counterfeit by walking through what broke. You were learning to hear God's voice above the static. And still, in the middle of your confusion, heaven whispered softly, "You are mine." That's why you never completely gave up. Even when everything told you to, something inside you refused to die. It was your divine identity calling you back home. As the apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, first letter, chapter 6, verse 19, "Do you not know your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, received from God? You are not your own. You belong to something eternal. The Spirit of God himself resides in you. That's why the darkness couldn't claim you, why destruction couldn't hold you. You've been walking with heaven's breath inside your lungs this entire time. The battle for your identity was fierce because of what you carry. You carry light that terrifies shadows. You carry authority that angels recognize. The enemy tried to distract you with pain, so you would forget your power. He wanted you to believe you were powerless, so you would never speak the words that shift atmospheres. But even now, as you read this, remembrance stirs. Heaven is pulling the veil off your eyes. You start to see that every rejection was protection. Every delay was divine direction. The very things that wounded you became the weapons of your wisdom. What tried to silence you has become the testimony that will awaken others. Because once a chosen one remembers, chains break, not just for them, but for everyone watching. So, you rise quietly, not with pride, but with clarity. You remember that your worth was never determined by their approval. You remember that your calling didn't expire when they left. You remember that you are still the one God selected, the one heaven equipped, the one carrying an assignment too heavy for ordinary shoulders. The enemy tried to convince you that the battle was outside you, but it was always inside, between who you truly are and who fear said you were. Yet look at you now, still breathing, still shining, still hearing heaven's whisper, "You are mine." The fight for your identity is not ending, it is shifting. You are no longer the hunted, you are the awakened. You are no longer questioning, you are remembering. Heaven is reclaiming what the enemy tried to rename. You walk now not as one confused, but as one commissioned. You walk not to prove, but to remind creation who you've always been. The darkness trembles, not because of your perfection, but because you finally see. You see what you were never meant to forget, that the divine dwells within you, and no voice of fear, shame, or doubt can ever unmake what heaven has already declared complete. The battle for your identity ends where remembrance begins. And now, remembrance has begun. The mark of the misfit, chosen one. Do you remember the first time you realized you didn't belong? The first moment you looked around and thought, "I see differently. I feel differently. I am not like them." That realization was never rejection. It was recognition. Heaven had placed its mark upon you long before the world knew your name. You've carried this mark your entire life. Though you didn't always understand it, you could walk into a room and sense the unspoken tension, the hidden motives, the unseen pain. You could feel the shift in the air when darkness entered. Even if no one else noticed, you were born with sensitivity that others called strange, but heaven called sacred. That is the mark of the misfit, a soul designed for divine frequency, misunderstood by those who still live by noise. They mocked what they couldn't understand. They called you dramatic, emotional, unstable, but what they called weakness was actually awareness. You hear heaven clearer because your spirit is tuned to frequencies that shallow hearts cannot detect. It's no accident that you were misunderstood. Every chosen one walks through the valley of isolation before stepping into divine illumination. You had to walk alone so you would learn whose voice truly matters. The loneliness was not abandonment. It was heaven filtering your circle so your calling would not be contaminated. There were nights when you asked, "Why can't I just be normal?" But normal would have suffocated your anointing. You weren't created to blend, you were created to blaze. You have always been set apart, chosen for impact, assigned for difference. The very traits that made you an outcast are the same traits that qualify you for divine purpose. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 19, verse 21, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. End of Trom. You see, Your life hasn't gone according to your plans because your plans were too small. Every detour, every delay, every broken expectation was heaven rerouting you toward purpose. You thought you were wandering, but you were being led. You thought you were lost, but heaven knew exactly where to hide you until it was time. People came and went like shifting shadows, but heaven's hand never left you. Even when you doubted your worth, divine fingerprints remained on your soul. That's why, no matter how many times you tried to fit in, something inside you resisted. Your spirit refused to betray its origin. You were born of light, and darkness could never claim you. You might think of all the times you toned yourself down, trying not to scare people away. You softened your glow to make others comfortable. But chosen one, when light dims itself to please shadows, creation mourns the silence of its brilliance. You are not here to be acceptable. You are here to be undeniable. Your story carries the fragrance of divine rebellion. Not rebellion against God, but against conformity, fear, and the illusion of mediocrity. The world calls you strange, heaven calls you significant. And when you finally stop apologizing for being different, heaven will start moving openly through you. The rejection you faced wasn't random, it was revelation. Those who left simply weren't assigned to your destiny. They couldn't recognize you because they weren't meant to walk with you. You are not difficult to love. You are difficult to deceive. That's why you intimidated the wrong hearts and attracted the right storms. The mark of the misfit is also the seal of destiny. It sets you apart so you can walk where others fear to tread. You will go into broken places and carry healing. You will step into confusion and bring clarity. You will be the reminder that holiness can still exist in human form. And yes, it hurts to be different. It hurts to be the one who sees beyond the surface, who feels deeply in a shallow world. But the pain of difference is the price of purpose. Heaven trusted you with depth because others drown in it. What overwhelms them refines you. Chosen one. You are not cursed for being different. You are crowned by it. The ache in your chest when you can't find your people is heaven's reminder that your tribe is spiritual, not situational. The ones meant for, you will recognize your light without explanation. Until then, keep shining. Now, if your spirit recognizes this truth, if you feel seen, known, and understood, in these words, take a breath and let your heart respond. In the comments, write, I am found. Nante. Because when you declare I am found, you aren't just typing words, you're aligning with heaven's confirmation. You're proclaiming that you've stopped apologizing for being chosen. You're telling every lie of shame and every voice of doubt that you are no longer lost in the crowd. You are found in purpose, found in identity, found in divine truth. You were never misplaced. You were hidden. And now, heaven says it's time to be seen. The weight you were never meant to carry. Chosen one. For too long you have carried burdens that were never yours. You took on pain that didn't belong to you, responsibilities that were never assigned to you, and expectations that crushed the joy from your spirit. You mistook compassion for obligation, love for self-erasure. You thought carrying everyone else's world made you holy. But heaven never asked you to play savior. It asked you to trust the Savior. You've always been the one others run to, haven't you? The listener, the healer, the quiet shoulder that absorbs everyone's storms. You smile when they need hope. Even when your own heart is heavy, you hold space for others' healing while silently bleeding within. But heaven sees what others overlook. Heaven sees the way your soul bends under the weight of unspoken expectations. There comes a moment when God calls even the strongest hearts to lay it down, because you were never meant to carry what breaks you. You were meant to intercede, not internalize, to pray, not to possess their pain. Somewhere along the way, you confused endurance with purpose. You thought that the more you suffered, the more you were proving your loyalty. But heaven whispers now, you are not meant to die under the weight of what you were sent to heal. You see, chosen souls often mistake empathy for identity. You feel others so deeply that their sorrow becomes your shadow. But there is a holy difference between compassion and captivity. Compassion says, I will stand with you. Captivity says, if you hurt, I must hurt too. The first is divine, the second is deception. The voice of God thundered in the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Of this, rest is not weakness. Rest is worship. It is the soul's way of saying, I trust you, God, more than I trust my effort. The world taught you to grind until you break. But heaven teaches you to pause until you remember. Every time you choose rest over anxiety, you declare that the outcome belongs to the one who called you. Think back. Chosen one. To the times you carried things you were never meant to. You tried to fix people who refused healing. You blamed yourself for outcomes that were never your responsibility. You tried to love enough to make others stay. But love is not control, it is freedom. True love releases, it does not restrain. The burden of others' expectations has clouded your light for too long. You were called to serve, not to sink. You were anointed to carry truth, not trauma. You were meant to pour out grace, not to drown in guilt. Heaven never assigned you to be the hero of every story. You were called to point to the hero in every story. And maybe, deep inside, you've feared what would happen if you put it all down. You've wondered, if I stop carrying them, will everything fall apart? But the truth is this, if something collapses when you rest, it was never built on God in the first place. Your job is obedience, not omnipotence. Heaven is lifting that unseen weight from your shoulders even now. The exhaustion that has lived in your bones, the pressure behind every quiet smile, it's loosening. The divine exchange is happening. Your burden for His peace, your striving for His sufficiency. You will breathe again. And it won't be because everything is perfect. It will be because you finally understand that perfection is not required for peace. You will rest. Not because you've finished everything, but because you've realized you were never meant to finish everything alone. There is a sacred rhythm to being chosen. It's not constant movement. It's learning to live between the call and the calm. The strongest warriors know when to fight and when to fold into God's embrace. The battle you're in now is not asking you to do more. It's asking you to release more. You are not abandoning others when you rest. You are aligning yourself with heaven's order. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. You cannot heal others while denying your own wholeness. The strength of a chosen one is not in how much they carry, but in how fully they trust. So, chosen one, lay it down. The weight of others' opinions, the guilt for saying no, the illusion that you must always be available, it's time to release it. Heaven cannot fill what your hands still clutch. Let go, and watch peace flood in where pressure used to live. This is your holy permission to stop trying to be everything for everyone and start being faithful to the one who called you. You were never meant to carry it all, only to carry his presence. And his presence, chosen one, is weightless. The voice that wouldn't be silenced, chosen one. Think back to the moments when you almost gave up speaking. The moments when your words trembled in your chest but never left your lips because the world convinced you that your voice was too small, too strange, too much. Yet even in that silence, heaven was still speaking through you. The voice of purpose does not vanish. It only waits to be remembered. There is a sacred sound inside you. It's the sound that once whispered in childhood dreams, that trembled through the tears of heartbreak, that still hums quietly in your spirit when you pray. It's the echo of heaven in human form. And no matter how hard life has tried to bury it, it keeps rising. That's because your voice was never meant for comfort. It was meant for calling. Every time you've been misunderstood, you've been refined. Every time you've been silenced, you've been sharpened. The world tried to teach you that silence equals peace. But silence in the face of calling is surrender to fear. You were never called to whisper when heaven built you to thunder. You see, every chosen one carries a divine frequency, a sound that cannot be replicated, only released. That's why you feel uncomfortable when you try to imitate others. Your spirit knows imitation is imprisonment. The sound you carry is not meant to echo someone else. It's meant to awaken those who've forgotten their own voice. There were nights when you spoke truth and it felt like no one heard. But heaven heard. Every time your prayers rose, like smoke into the unseen. Every time your voice cracked from crying, but you spoke anyway, heaven counted it as worship. Your words are seeds. And though you've planted them in silence, the harvest will be loud. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 34, verse 17, "The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles." Do you understand what that means? Chosen one, it means your voice never vanished into the void. The moment it left your lips, heaven caught it. You thought your prayers went unanswered, but they were simply being prepared for perfect timing. You have not been ignored. You've been incubated. Your voice is like rain after drought. It doesn't always come with thunder, but it always brings life. You were called to speak, not because your words are flawless, but because your authenticity is sacred. When you speak from your scars, heaven amplifies your sound. Your story becomes a melody that reminds others that broken things can still sing. Think of the wind carrying seeds across a barren field. That's what your voice does. It carries hope where despair thought it owned the land. You are not just speaking words, you are sowing futures. You are planting courage in places where fear used to rule. And though you may not always see the fruit, heaven ensures that not one syllable of your obedience is wasted. There will be people who still doubt you. Let them. You were not chosen to convince them. You were chosen to awaken those who can hear you. Sheep recognize the voice of their shepherd, and those meant to walk with you will recognize heaven's tone in your words. The rest are simply background noise to your calling symphony. Beloved, your voice is not fragile, it's fire. Fire does not need permission to burn. It only needs oxygen. So breathe deeply, speak boldly, and let your sound fill the world again. Heaven has waited long enough for you to believe in your own echo. And now, as your spirit feels that old flame flicker again, I want you to pause and consider this, just as light needs reflection to be seen. Sound needs resonance to be heard. Your voice resonates when it's shared. It multiplies when it's received. So, if these words stirred something in you, if you felt even for a moment that divine tug on your soul, don't let it fade into another forgotten emotion. Instead, take a small act of faith, like this message, as a way of saying, I hear heaven again. Share it as an offering of light to someone still trapped in silence. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, not as routine, but as alignment. It's your way of saying, I am part of this awakening. I will not go back to sleep. Every time you do, imagine your voice joining a chorus of other chosen ones rising around the world. Imagine your single yes becoming part of a divine echo that reaches hearts you may never meet, but are destined to touch. Because your voice, chosen one, was never meant to stay hidden in the shadows. It was meant to ripple across time, to remind creation that heaven still speaks through human hearts brave enough to open their mouths and say, I'm still here. We still believe. You are not voiceless. You are victory wrapped in breath. And heaven is waiting for your sound. Heaven's intervention, the turning point, chosen one. There are moments in life when everything pauses, not because you planned it, but because heaven intervened. You may have thought it was coincidence that you heard this message now, that certain doors closed suddenly, that people you trusted walked away. But nothing about this moment is accidental. This is divine interruption. Heaven has stepped into your story to reroute your destiny. You have been walking in circles, trying to make sense of confusion, and wondering why peace seems to appear and vanish like mist. The truth is, heaven has been guiding your steps even through the maze. Every delay, every disappointment, every detour, it all formed the path that led you here. You thought you were being punished. You were actually being protected. There are times when God doesn't say go, but instead says wait. You mistook the silence as absence, but it was strategy. The pause was divine protection. Heaven keeping you hidden while storms you couldn't see were passing overhead. Sometimes God lets the door slam, not because you're unworthy, but because He refuses to let you walk into disaster disguised as opportunity. You were wondering, why did everything stop? Why did it all change so suddenly? But this is what divine interception looks like. It rarely announces itself gently. Sometimes heaven shakes your foundation to rebuild it stronger. Sometimes it tears away what you begged to keep, just to make space for what you were born to carry. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And even when you thought you were walking alone, you were never alone. The same presence that parted seas still stands beside you in every storm. Every unanswered prayer was a redirected one. Every no was heaven whispering, not this way, there's a better path ahead. Chosen one. Divine intervention often looks like inconvenience. It frustrates you, confuses you, breaks your plans, but in truth, it saves your purpose. God had to stop you before the wrong people crowned you, before the wrong doors trapped you, before the wrong identity defined you. You thought it was loss, but it was liberation. Think about it. What if the things that fell apart were never meant to hold you? What if the ones who left were not your foundation, but your distraction? Sometimes the storm doesn't destroy you. It exposes what was never stable to begin with. Heaven isn't punishing you, it's pruning you. You may not have seen it yet, but this moment marks a holy turning point. Everything that once made you weep will one day make you worship. Everything that confused you will make sense in the light of remembrance. This season is the hinge where endings bend into beginnings, and silence gives birth to songs. Heaven is realigning your life piece by piece. What looked like loss was actually a lesson. What looked like silence was a setup. You didn't lose your way. You were being pulled into alignment with divine timing. And when heaven decides the timing is right, no delay can hold you back. The signs are already appearing. You've been sensing the shift in your spirit. Random confirmations, subtle peace in the middle of chaos, moments of clarity that come out of nowhere. These are not coincidences, they are coordinates. Heaven is guiding you home. You may not understand the full picture, but trust the painter. He is crafting beauty from your brokenness, order from your confusion. The master artist never wastes a stroke, and every tear you've cried is part of the masterpiece. And now, as this word reaches you, heaven is asking for one simple response, a prophetic act of agreement to mark the moment. If you feel this message stirring your heart, if you sense that divine hands are rearranging your path right now, then comment 888 below, because the number 888 represents new beginnings, resurrection, and the endless flow of grace. When you write it, you are not performing a ritual, you are declaring alignment. You're saying, I receive the new beginning. Heaven has prepared for me. I choose to walk in divine timing, not human haste. Chosen one. This is your shift. Heaven has intercepted your plans not to delay you, but to deliver you. Every second that felt wasted was sacred preparation. Every heartbreak was heaven clearing the way for holy restoration. You've reached the moment where grace meets destiny. Step forward, not with fear, but with faith. The turning point isn't coming, it's happening now, and heaven is still with you, guiding, protecting, and writing a story that only divine hands could craft. You are not lost. You are being led. The fire in your spirit, chosen one. There is a fire within you that cannot be quenched. It has burned quietly through every season of your life, through heartbreak, rejection, disappointment, and still it refuses to die. You have tried to silence it, tried to smother it with logic and fear. But divine fire does not obey human reason. It flickers when you doubt, but it never goes out. You were born carrying this flame, even as a child. Something inside you burned for more, for truth, for purpose, for something beyond the surface of the world. While others were satisfied with ordinary answers, you searched for meaning in everything. That hunger wasn't random, it was the whisper of eternity woven into your soul. Life has tried to extinguish that hunger, hasn't it? The betrayals, the exhaustion, the endless cycles of giving and not being seen. You've been misunderstood because your passion scared people who settled for comfort. But you were never meant to live lukewarm. You were meant to burn bright, to radiate warmth that awakens hearts frozen by fear. You've walked through fire before, moments that nearly consumed you. But even in the flames, something unexplainable happened. What should have destroyed you purified you instead. The very heat that broke others built resilience in you. Every trial you survived became fuel for your spirit. Heaven has been refining you like gold in the furnace, removing everything that could not carry the weight of your calling. You wonder sometimes, why do I feel everything so deeply? Why does my heart ignite so quickly for what others ignore? Because that's who you are. You carry a divine ignition point, heaven's spark resting in human form. When you enter a room, the spiritual temperature changes. Darkness trembles, not because of your words, but because of your fire. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 6. For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. Do you feel that? Chosen one. The reminder that your flame is not gone, it simply needs breath. God never withdrew his gift. He's asking you to stir it again. Every ember still glows beneath the ashes of doubt, waiting for your decision to breathe again. The world doesn't need more voices, it needs more fire. It needs you. But remember this, fire is both creation and destruction. It brings warmth, but it can also burn what is false. That's why some people disappeared from your life. When your spirit started to rise, they couldn't withstand your heat. Don't chase those who left. They were never meant to walk in your next season. You are stepping into divine intensity, and only those refined by fire can stand beside you now. Fire purifies by consuming what doesn't belong. So, when life feels like everything familiar is burning away, don't panic. Heaven is removing the unnecessary. You are not losing. You are being lightened for flight. The phoenix cannot rise while clinging to its ashes. Chosen one. Your fire isn't just for you, it's for generations. It's the blaze that will light the path for others stumbling through darkness. Your courage becomes their spark. Your endurance becomes their map. Every time you rise again, you teach the world that resurrection is not just an event, it's a lifestyle. You are not here to blend into the ashes of society. You are here to ignite transformation wherever you go. That's why complacency feels like suffocation to you. That's why mediocrity never satisfies. You were built for divine combustion, to burn away illusion and reveal truth. Do not fear your intensity. The world has labeled passionate souls as too much, because it fears those who remember heaven's fire. But God delights in your flame. He placed it there as proof that His Spirit lives within you. The same fire that rested on the apostles rests on you. Now it is inheritance, not coincidence. There will come a moment when the fire feels like it's fading, when your soul feels cold from exhaustion. But even then, remember, divine fire never dies. It simply waits. Waits for worship, for obedience, for one spark of faith to flare into revival. Your smallest yes can reignite what you thought was gone forever. So let it burn. Chosen one, let your prayers be embers that light the sky. Let your words be sparks that awaken sleeping hearts. Let your life become a living altar where heaven's fire never goes out. You were never called to be safe. You were called to be a flame. And as long as you carry this fire, darkness can never claim victory. You are the torchbearer, the carrier of divine light. Burn brightly, and let the world see what happens when a chosen one remembers the fire within. The breaking before the becoming. Chosen one. Every story written by heaven contains a breaking point. It is not cruelty, it is creation. Before the light shines through the vessel must crack. Before the seed grows, it must split open in the dark. Before the butterfly emerges, the cocoon must tear. You, too, have known this sacred breaking. You thought it was the end. You thought the weight that pressed against your chest would crush you for good. The heartbreaks, the betrayals, the sudden losses, they felt like destruction. But in truth, they were divine surgery. Heaven was cutting away everything that could not go where you are destined to go. There is a kind of pain that builds rather than breaks. It dismantles illusions, removes masks, burns away false confidence, and leaves you standing naked before truth. That is where transformation begins, not in triumph, but in surrender. When you stop fighting to appear strong and finally admit your weakness, heaven steps in with power. Chosen one. Your breaking was not punishment, it was purification. You had to lose the version of yourself that relied on people, plans, and performance. You had to unlearn survival to remember how to live. Heaven cannot fill what is already full of pride, fear, or pretense. That's why it allowed the emptiness, so there would be room for glory. Every tear you shed in silence was not wasted. Tears are not weakness. They are sacred water that softens the soil of your heart for new growth. You wept because your spirit recognized what your mind couldn't. That change was happening. You weren't falling apart. You were falling into alignment. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 3, verse 19, "The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to tread on the heights." 1. You see, chosen one. The very pain that weakened you is now the platform on which you'll stand taller. Your scars will become proof of survival, evidence that heaven restores what hell tries to ruin. Every wound becomes a window through which light will shine. You may still carry traces of the breaking, the ache in your memory, the tremble in your trust. But those are reminders, not punishments. They remind you of what you overcame and of the grace that carried you through. You did not walk out of the fire empty-handed. You walked out refined, radiant, redefined. The breaking taught you empathy. It softened the edges of judgment, opened your eyes to suffering, and turned your pain into compassion. You learned to love without conditions because you knew what it was to feel unworthy and still be loved. That is how heaven equips its healers through heartbreak. Every chosen one must walk through breaking to carry authority. Without it, words are hollow. Without it, compassion is theory. But with it, your voice gains weight because it's backed by survival. You can now speak to pain with the authority of one who's endured it. You can now lift others because you know how it feels to crawl. Don't despise the breaking seasons. They are sacred classrooms where God teaches strength through surrender and wisdom through wounds. You had to experience darkness to truly appreciate light. You had to be emptied to recognize fullness. What felt like endings were only transformations in disguise. Even now, the remnants of your breaking are becoming. You're becoming. You are learning to walk differently, to trust deeper, to love freer, to forgive quicker. The person who emerges after breaking does not resemble the one who entered. You are being made new from the inside out. So if you still feel fragile, remember, fragility is not failure. It's proof that you're forming again. Clay must stay soft in the potter's hands to be shaped. Your vulnerability is the evidence that God is still molding you. Don't rush this stage. Becoming takes time. Soon, you'll see that the breaking was not the end of your story, but the beginning of your testimony. You will speak from this place with authority that shakes the atmosphere. Others will look at your scars and see not weakness, but wonder. They'll realize that broken things, when surrendered, become instruments of glory. Chosen one. The fire did not consume you, it clarified you. The breaking did not end you, it introduced you to yourself. And now, you stand at the threshold of transformation, carrying wisdom forged in pain, grace born from grief, and light no darkness can dim. You are becoming what you were always meant to be, and this time, nothing will break you the same way again. When God hid you to heal you, chosen one. There were seasons when everything went quiet. The doors stopped opening. The people stopped calling. The opportunities that once overflowed suddenly disappeared. You prayed, but the heavens seemed still. You wondered if you had done something wrong, if God had changed his mind about you, but he hadn't. Heaven wasn't ignoring you, it was hiding you. When God hides you, it is not rejection, it is protection. It is the divine pause that separates noise from destiny. He covers you the way a gardener covers a seed underground. Unseen, but never forgotten. The hidden seasons are where strength is built, where roots grow deep enough to hold the weight of future fruit. You were asking for promotion, but heaven gave you preparation. You were asking for visibility, but heaven gave you vision. In your solitude, you learned to hear the whisper of God without the applause of people. You learned to depend not on validation, but on revelation. That's what happens when heaven hides you. It heals what the world wounded. The loneliness that once haunted you was actually your cocoon. God wrapped you in silence so that you could transform without interference. The ones who once stood beside you wouldn't have understood the process. They would have tried to rush what only heaven could refine. So God hid you, not to punish you, but to protect your becoming. You may have cried, wondering why no one saw your worth. You watched others succeed while you sat still, but you didn't know that their speed was superficial, while your stillness was supernatural. Heaven wasn't delaying you, it was developing you. The Word of God declares in the book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 3, I will give you hidden treasures, riches stored in secret places, so you may know I am the Lord. Those hidden treasures were never meant to be found in crowds. They were meant to be uncovered in solitude. That's why your isolation hurt. It was holy ground disguised as heartbreak. God was revealing himself to you in places where distraction couldn't follow. Chosen one. Your hidden years are not wasted years. They are sacred seasons where heaven trains warriors in silence. Every tear watered your roots. Every unanswered question deepened your discernment. When others were celebrating on the surface, you were being strengthened in the soil. Now, look at you, stronger, wiser, quieter, but clearer. You don't chase validation anymore because you've learned that the approval of men cannot sustain what the anointing of God births. You are walking proof that hidden seasons produce heavenly authority. The reason the world couldn't see you is because you were being built for a different light. Ordinary lamps shine anywhere, but diamonds must stay buried until the pressure completes them. You were becoming rare. Heaven was crafting something in you that only time and testing could reveal. So when you feel unseen, remember, every miracle begins in the dark. The womb, the soil, the tomb creation, growth, and resurrection all start in hiddenness. God doesn't hide you to humiliate you. He hides you to protect his investment. And now, your time in the shadows is nearing its end. You will step forward, not as the same person who entered hiding, but as one refined, equipped, and radiant with heaven's fire. You will move with quiet authority, speaking words that carry weight because they were forged in silence. Those who overlooked you will be surprised. They will wonder where you came from, not realizing that heaven has been preparing you all along. You were never forgotten, you were reserved. And when heaven reveals what has been hidden, it will happen suddenly. No striving, no chasing, just divine unveiling. If this truth stirs your spirit, if something in you whispers, "This is me," then let your heart answer heaven's invitation. In the comments, write, "I am ready." Alu, because when you declare, "I am ready," you're not saying you're perfect. You're saying you're willing. You're saying, "God, I understand now why you hid me, and I'm ready to be seen again in your time, not mine." You're saying that the pain of isolation will not define you, but the healing from it will. This declaration marks the shift from hiddenness to unveiling, from silence to song. Heaven has completed its secret work, and the time for emergence has come. Chosen one, you are stepping out of the shadows, not empty, but full of wisdom, grace, and power born in stillness. And as you rise, the world will not just see you, they will see God through you. The authority you forgot you carry. Chosen one, you've been walking through life, forgetting that heaven placed a crown on your head long before the world ever placed opinions on your shoulders. You have bowed beneath fear, second-guessed your intuition, and apologized for your own light. But now, heaven leans close to whisper, "Remember who you are. Remember what you carry. There is authority in you, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that shifts the atmosphere without raising a voice. It's quiet power, divine weight. When you enter a room, things begin to align. Chaos begins to calm. You may not see it, but the unseen realm recognizes you. You have lived as though you were waiting for permission to walk in power, but heaven already signed your authority with fire. The storms you survived weren't meant to break you, they were meant to crown you. Every battle trained you to discern what is holy and what is harmful. You've been given the keys to peace, and with every prayer you speak, the gates of darkness tremble. There was a time when you mistook humility for silence. You thought that to be kind meant to stay small, that to be pure meant to be invisible. But true humility is not hiding your light, it's using it for the good of others. False humility keeps miracles buried. True humility releases heaven's authority through willing hands, as Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." Light does not apologize for shining. It simply does what it was made to do. You, too, were designed to illuminate. The authority within you is not arrogance, it is obedience. When you walk in your purpose, you're not stealing glory from God, you're reflecting it. You are a mirror polished by mercy. Chosen one, your authority has always been active, you just forgot how to use it. You speak peace into confusion, and it comes. You pray over others, and healing stirs. You forgive, and the chains around your heart fall off. That is authority in motion. It doesn't roar, it resonates. Think of it this way: lightning doesn't ask permission from the sky, it simply responds to the pull of heaven. You are the same. The divine current flows through you because you are grounded in faith. The enemy fears you not because of your perfection, but because of your potential. The moment you remember, you become unstoppable. You have the authority to bless or curse, to build or destroy. Words are your weapons, and when spoken with faith, they carry creative power. That's why you've been attacked in your confidence. The enemy has always feared the moment you would believe your words mattered. Look back at your life. How many times did something shift after you prayed, even when you didn't realize it? How many times did peace follow you into chaos? You have been operating in authority without even knowing it. Heaven is now asking you to do it consciously, to move with awareness, not accident. And remember this: the crown you carry isn't made of gold, it's made of surrender. The most powerful souls are not those who dominate, but those who align. Authority flows through yielded hearts. The moment you stop striving and start trusting, heaven's current amplifies through you. You are not meant to be timid about what God placed inside you. A candle that hides under a bowl does nothing for the darkness. Stand firm. Speak light. Walk as though heaven trusts you, because it does. And if this message resonates with your spirit, if something deep within you whispers, "I've forgotten, but I'm ready to remember," then take a small act of faith. Like this message, not for vanity, but as your way of saying, "I reclaim my light." Share it not as routine, but as reflection, like a lighthouse guiding another lost ship toward the shore. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, not to a channel, but to a calling to stay connected to this flow of truth that keeps your flame alive. Every time you do, imagine it as a ripple of light, one spark igniting another, spreading across hearts, across nations, until the world begins to glow with remembrance again. That is what your authority does. It multiplies light. Chosen one, heaven has been waiting for you to stand again, not as a servant of fear, but as an ambassador of faith. The world does not need another echo, it needs your original sound, charged with divine fire. Walk boldly, speak truth, love fiercely, for the authority you forgot you carry has never left you. It's been waiting, quietly burning beneath the ashes of doubt, ready to rise when you do. The mantle of light, chosen one. You were never meant to blend into the background of the world. You were designed to illuminate it. The light within you has never been just for you. It is a mantle, a sacred inheritance woven into your being before you even understood its weight. Heaven entrusted you with something powerful, the ability to carry divine light in human form. But light is a responsibility. It exposes. It reveals. It changes everything. It touches. And that is why your life has never been ordinary. Every trial you've endured, every storm you've survived, it wasn't random, it was refining. You were being prepared to carry the kind of light that terrifies darkness. There is something about you that unsettles the atmosphere. People can't always explain it, but they feel it. When you walk into a room, conviction rises. Truth stirs. Masks tremble. You carry the reminder that light and shadow cannot coexist, and those comfortable in darkness rarely celebrate illumination. That's why misunderstanding follows you. That's why rejection found you. But don't mistake resistance for rejection. When light appears, darkness reacts. You were not meant to be liked by everyone. You were meant to be recognized by heaven. You are a carrier of presence, and presence always provokes response. Light is not just brightness, it is revelation. It shows what has been hidden, and that is what you've been doing, often without realizing it. Your words reveal truth. Your compassion exposes falsehood. Your discernment uncovers what pretends to be holy but isn't. That's why you've felt drained around certain people. Your light confronts what they'd rather keep concealed. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, the Word of God declares in the book of John, chapter 1, verse 5, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." And do you feel that chosen one, that quiet strength that rises in your chest when everything around you grows dim? It is not pride, it is power. The same light that broke through the void at creation burns within you now. It does not bow to darkness, it breaks it. The enemy has spent years trying to convince you that your light is a liability, that your sensitivity, your intuition, your spiritual awareness make you too different. But heaven smiles at your difference, because difference is divine. You are not here to imitate others, you are here to illuminate others. You may have tried to hide your glow before, out of fear, out of exhaustion, out of the desire to fit in, but hiding light is impossible for long. No matter how deep you bury it, it finds cracks in the walls of silence and slips through. Light always escapes confinement. You carry within you a celestial inheritance, the same spark that called stars into existence. That is why mediocrity feels unbearable to you. That is why compromise leaves you uneasy. You were not made for half-light. You were made for brilliance. And when you choose to walk in that brilliance, heaven moves through you effortlessly. The mantle of light is not glamorous. It's costly. It demands integrity, purity, and courage. It calls you to forgive when it's easier to fight, to love when it's safer to withdraw, to shine even when you're misunderstood. That is the paradox of the luminous soul, to carry beauty that burns, to bear power that humbles. Every season of pain you've endured has expanded your capacity to hold light. Brokenness created the space for brilliance to enter. Cracks in your heart became windows for heaven to pour through. What once felt like defeat was actually preparation, God ensuring that your light would not blind you with pride, but bless others with clarity. Chosen one, do not underestimate what radiates from you. It's not just warmth or kindness, it's transformation. People are drawn to you because your presence reminds them of something they've forgotten, that they, too, carry the potential to glow. You awaken the memory of heaven in weary hearts. You are the living evidence that light still wins. Every time you forgive, you defy darkness. Every time you hope again, you insult despair. Every time you love when you have reason to hate, you prove that the light within you is stronger than any shadow. And though this world grows dimmer with each passing day, remember, the darker it gets, the more your glow is needed. Don't shrink. Don't apologize. The light in you is heaven's response to this generation's confusion. You are not simply surviving, you are illuminating. So keep walking. Luminous soul. Let your light stretch beyond your comfort. Let it reach the forgotten, the fearful, the broken. You carry the dawn within you, and no night can resist your arrival. You are the mantle of light living, breathing proof that heaven still shines through human hands. The covenant of the called, chosen one. Heaven has never forgotten the covenant sealed upon your life. Long before you were born, long before you took your first breath, your name was spoken in divine chambers. You were not a random creation, you were an intentional assignment. Every challenge, every detour, every moment of survival has been part of the sacred covenant that still holds you now. You've felt that pull, haven't you? That quiet knowing that no matter how far you wander, something always draws you back. It's not guilt, it's gravity. Heaven's gravity. A reminder that your calling isn't something you can run from because it's written into your very design. There were seasons when you tried to live like everyone else, to fit into lives that looked easier, to chase dreams that didn't belong to you. But peace never stayed long, did it? Because the covenant calls louder than comfort. You were set apart for something higher. This covenant is not about perfection, it's about alignment. It doesn't demand that you never fall, it requires that you keep getting up. God knew the roads you'd take before you walked them. He saw the mistakes, the detours, the heartbreaks, and still said, "Mine." That is the depth of divine commitment. Heaven's covenant with you isn't fragile, it's eternal. When you accepted your calling, whether through a quiet whisper or a desperate cry, you entered into agreement with purpose. And every agreement demands proof. That's why tests came. That's why certain doors shut. The covenant must be tested to be trusted. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. And chosen one. This scripture isn't distant poetry, it's your biography. God knew you before fear, knew your name. He saw you before pain touched your hands. He appointed you when the world still called you ordinary. That's the covenant, the unbreakable bond between Creator and creation. And though you've doubted it at times, heaven never withdrew its promise. Even in rebellion, even in confusion, the covenant remained. Every time you strayed too far, something unseen guided you back. A song, a dream, a word, a moment that pierced through chaos and whispered, "Come home." This is how God works with the called. He does not chase with anger, but with mercy. He does not punish to destroy, but to redirect. You have been corrected because you are connected. The same fire that refines gold is the fire that has refined your life. Chosen one. Do you understand how rare this bond is? Many hear the call, but few carry the covenant. You carry it. It's in your discernment, in your compassion, in the way your spirit refuses to settle. You are a vessel marked by divine agreement. That's why compromise feels heavy. That's why sin feels suffocating. Heaven's mark is a reminder that you were created for higher frequency. Every time you step out of alignment, the covenant tugs you back. That tug is not condemnation, it's confirmation. It means heaven still has business with you. And that business will not end until every promise written over your name comes to pass. You've been protected more than you realize. There are battles you never saw because heaven fought them in silence. There are accidents that never happened because angels rerouted your steps. You think you've been lucky, but you've been covered. That's covenant protection, divine insurance over your destiny. And now, heaven whispers again, remember the promise. Remember who you are. Because this covenant is awakening again. Every dormant gift is being reactivated. Every delayed promise being realigned. You are entering a season where heaven calls in the investment it placed in you. This is not to burden you, it's to bless you. The weight you feel is not punishment, it's preparation. The covenant always calls before promotion. Heaven is ready to reveal what it has been cultivating in silence. You are stepping into the phase where what was whispered in secret will echo in the open. So, if you can feel this truth stirring in your chest, if your spirit recognizes that this message is not coincidence but confirmation, respond with faith. As a prophetic act, comment 444 below. Because the number 444 represents divine stability, angelic guidance, and the unfolding of sacred promises. When you type it, you are not chasing luck, you are declaring alignment. You're saying, I accept the covenant again. I choose to walk in divine order, protected and purposed. Let this be the seal on your remembrance. You are not simply a believer, you are a bearer of covenant. Heaven has never broken its promise, it has only been waiting for your yes. And now, as you breathe these words in, something shifts. The covenant is reaffirmed, the fire reignited, the path cleared. You were known, chosen, and called, and nothing can undo that. The war over your memory, chosen one. Every spiritual battle you've faced has had one main objective: to make you forget. Not just to forget facts or moments, but to forget who you are, what you carry, and who sent you. The enemy doesn't fear your talent, your appearance, or your possessions. It fears your memory, because once you remember, you awaken, and once you awaken, you become unstoppable. The war over your memory has been subtle, yet relentless. It began when disappointment clouded your joy, when betrayal fractured your trust, when fear whispered louder than faith. Slowly, piece by piece, the enemy tried to rewrite your inner story, to convince you that your worth was based on what went wrong, not on what was written about you in heaven. You've been walking through an invisible battlefield. Every doubt, every insecurity, every voice that said, "You're not enough," those were not random thoughts. They were strategies. The enemy understands that a chosen one who forgets their identity can carry divine power and never use it. He doesn't need to steal your anointing, he only needs to steal your awareness of it. That's why confusion has followed you. That's why people have spoken against you without cause. That's why you've questioned yourself, even when you knew the truth. It's not that you lack faith, it's that you've been under spiritual warfare designed to disconnect you from your divine memory. But hear this. The fact that you're still standing is proof that memory cannot be erased, only hidden. Deep in your spirit, the truth still burns. It's the reason you keep rising. The reason you feel that holy discomfort every time you try to settle for less. Heaven has built within you a recall that cannot be corrupted. The ancient words recorded in Romans chapter 8, verse 37, still echo today. No. In all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. And this is the counterattack against spiritual amnesia. You are not merely surviving, you are overcoming. The remembrance of divine love is your weapon. Every time you remember that you are loved beyond failure, shame loses its grip. Every time you recall that heaven is invested in you, fear dissolves. Chosen one. The enemy attacked your memory because he couldn't touch your destiny. He tried to make you forget that the same power that raised Christ from the dead lives in you. He wanted you to see yourself as fragile when heaven calls you fortified. Think about how many moments of clarity you've had, those sudden awakenings where truth surged through your spirit and reminded you, wait, I am chosen. I am not defeated. Those moments weren't random. They were divine flashbacks. Heaven's way of restoring your mind from spiritual sabotage. The world calls it resilience, but heaven calls it remembrance. You've been fighting to remember joy, peace, strength, hope, and every memory recovered weakens darkness. That's why your worship has power. It's not just praise, it's recall. Every time you worship, you remember. Every time you speak life, you rewrite your mental battlefield. This war has not been easy. The forgetfulness came disguised as fatigue, as distraction, as endless busyness. The enemy hoped to drown your spirit in noise, but heaven is quieting everything around you now so that your inner voice can rise again. You're remembering what it feels like to be aligned, to be grounded in divine truth. Your memory is holy ground. Within it are promises, prophecies, and encounters that define who you are. Guard it, feed it, speak life into it. When lies come, counter them with truth. When discouragement whispers, remind yourself of deliverance. When you feel lost, repeat the name that never leaves you, because the sound of his name restores identity. Do not underestimate the power of remembrance. When you recall what God has done, gratitude awakens authority. You stop begging and start declaring. You stop fearing and start reigning. Remembrance shifts you from reaction to revelation. The war over your memory is coming to an end. Heaven is restoring what confusion tried to steal. You will dream again. You will hope again. You will walk with the confidence of one who knows exactly whose they are. Every lie that tried to distort your vision will crumble in the light of truth. Soon, you'll look back and see how even your forgetfulness had purpose. It made your remembrance all the more powerful. You'll realize that nothing was lost, only hidden until the appointed time, and that time is now. Chosen one. The war was fierce, but your spirit remembers, and what remembers cannot be defeated. The crown of the overcomer, chosen one. There comes a time when the battles no longer define you, when the scars that once burned now shine like medals, when pain no longer speaks of defeat but of endurance. That moment is now. You stand at the edge of transformation, wearing the invisible crown that only those who have wrestled with darkness and won can understand. This crown was not placed on your head by men, but by heaven. It wasn't given in celebration. It was forged in the fire. Every tear you cried, every heartbreak you endured, every time you got back up when life demanded you stay down, those moments shaped its design. The jewels in your crown are not made of gold or diamonds, but of perseverance, mercy, and grace. You have walked through valleys where others lost faith, and yet here you are still standing, still believing, still carrying light. That is what makes you an overcomer. Not perfection, not ease, but the relentless decision to keep walking even when the path disappears beneath your feet. There were times when you doubted if God still remembered you, times when your prayers felt like echoes fading into endless silence. You wondered, does heaven still see me? Does it still care? But even then, the answer was yes. The silence was not rejection. It was strategy. Heaven was working in dimensions you could not perceive, preparing restoration that required your resilience. Overcomers are not born in comfort. They are sculpted in struggle. You were not chosen because you were strong. You became strong because you were chosen. The same battles that tried to bury you became the soil that grew your authority. Every closed door taught you how to build your own. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every delay trained your patience. Nothing was wasted. As the apostle wrote in his second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 8, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair." Oh, that is the anthem of every overcomer, broken yet unbowed, weary yet still worshipping, wounded yet still walking. The world looks at your life and sees endurance without understanding the invisible strength behind it. They see calm where there should be chaos because they don't realize that heaven has taught you peace that surpasses understanding. Chosen one. The crown you wear is weighty because it carries history. It carries the prayers whispered in pain, the forgiveness given when none was deserved, the faith held when sight failed. Your crown doesn't shine because of what you gained. It shines because of what you survived. You've been through storms that should have drowned you, yet you learned to breathe underwater. You've walked through fires that should have burned you, yet you came out radiant. You faced nights so long they felt eternal, yet dawn still found you praying. That is what makes you unshakable. You learned that God's faithfulness is not proven by the absence of struggle, but by your survival through it. Every overcomer carries a paradox: soft heart, strong spine. You've learned compassion without losing conviction, gentleness without surrendering power. That balance is divine. It's what allows you to heal others without losing yourself again. Now you stand not as the same person who entered the storm, but as someone refined. Your posture is different. Your eyes carry wisdom that words can't explain. You've learned that not every fight deserves your energy, that silence can be strategy, and that peace is sometimes the loudest form of strength. The crown of the overcomer is invisible to the world, but unmistakable in the spirit. Hell recognizes it and retreats. Heaven sees it and rejoices. It's the sign that you've passed through fire and come out glowing with glory. This crown isn't about pride, it's about purpose. It's a reminder that victory wasn't meant to make you superior, but to make you a signpost. When others see you, they will see what survival looks like in human form. You will become living proof that God restores, that grace rebuilds, and that broken people still carry brilliance. So, wear your crown. Chosen one, not with arrogance, but with awareness. Let it remind you of every storm you outlived, every wound you forgave, every miracle that met you in midnight hours. Let it keep your head lifted, not because you're above others, but because you remember who placed it there. You are crowned, not for what you've done, but for what you've endured. You are the overcomer, marked, refined, radiant, and nothing can remove what heaven has placed upon your head. The return of the remnant, chosen one. Can you feel it? The quiet trembling beneath the surface of this world, the stirring of those who have slept too long. Heaven is awakening its hidden ones across cities, deserts, and valleys. The remnant rises, those who refuse to die in the dark, those who carry oil in secret jars, those who still believe when faith feels old-fashioned. You are one of them. The remnant is not defined by number, but by nature. They are the ones who kept the flame alive when the wind howled. They are the ones who whispered prayers when words felt heavy. The world has shouted many names over you: outsider, dreamer, misfit. But heaven calls you remnant, the remainder that refuses to vanish. You are part of a divine orchestra tuning in the shadows before the great unveiling. For a long time, it felt like your melody didn't matter, that your voice was drowned out by noise. But heaven was composing something in secret, weaving your frequency with others like you. And now, the harmony is forming. The song of the awakened is rising, echoing across hearts that have forgotten their rhythm. You see, chosen one, the remnant, is heaven's reply to corruption. When darkness thinks it has won, God whispers through the few who still remember light. You were not overlooked, you were preserved, hidden like seed beneath the soil until the season of revelation. As the prophet Elijah once learned, when he thought he stood alone, heaven whispered that there were still 7,000 who had not bowed to false idols. So it is now. You have never been alone. Every time your spirit groaned in intercession, someone miles away felt the same, stirring. You are threads in the same divine fabric, woven across time and distance. It was proclaimed in the book of Zechariah, chapter 9, verse 12. Return to your fortress. You prisoners of hope, even now I announce, I will restore twice as much to you. This is the promise to the remnant restoration. Double for your waiting, joy for your sorrow, purpose for your pain. You've carried hope like a flame cupped in your palms, protecting it from every storm. Now heaven breathes on it, and it grows into fire. Your life has been training for this hour. Every delay refined your patience. Every disappointment purified your motives. Every silent season taught you to hear heaven's heartbeat beyond the noise. And now, the time has come to step out of the caves, to lift your eyes, and to take your place among the awakened. The world needs what you carry. You are not here to condemn it, but to remind it of love, of faith, of the forgotten rhythm of grace. You are a lantern in human form, walking through the fog to guide others home. Don't underestimate your glow. A single flame can set forests ablaze. But here's what heaven desires of you now: connection. Remnants were never meant to walk alone. Light grows brighter when it finds reflection. Your story, your testimony, your voice, they are all mirrors, reflecting the greater flame. If this message resonates in your soul, if you feel that gentle fire awakening in your chest, don't keep it contained. Like this message not for attention, but as a signal, like lighting a torch that tells heaven, I am still here. Share it as a ripple of remembrance, a beacon sent into someone's midnight. And yes, subscribe, not for numbers, but for connection. This is how the remnant finds each other, how we form the circle of light across the digital wilderness. And when you're done, leave a comment below your voice, your flame, your reflection. Speak what this word stirred in you. You never know who might read it and find their courage again. Sometimes the very sentence you release becomes the spark that reignites another's faith. You, beloved, are not simply surviving this age, you are helping shape it. The remnant carries heaven's blueprint in their hearts. You are the bridge between what was and what's coming. You stand as proof that light still burns in human form. So stand tall, radiant soul. The return of the remnant isn't a prophecy waiting to happen, it's happening now. Through you, through us. One spark at a time, one word at a time, until the night itself begins to glow with remembrance. You were not forgotten, you were being gathered. The orchestra is tuning. The dawn is rising. And your note matters. The restoration of all that was stolen, chosen one. The seasons of loss were never the conclusion, they were the classroom. You walked through years where it seemed everything sacred slipped through your hands. Relationships, peace, purpose, identity. But what you didn't realize was that heaven was keeping record. Nothing lost to faithfulness ever remains, lost forever. There is a divine law that says what was stolen must be restored. And not as it was, but multiplied. For a long time, you lived with quiet ache. You made peace with absence, learned to smile while empty, convinced yourself that maybe the best years were behind you. But heaven was never finished. What looked like endings were only pauses in divine restoration. You are about to see redemption unfold, not as compensation, but as transformation. The years you thought were wasted were actually years of preparation. Heaven was rebuilding the foundation so that what returns to you now will not crumble again. Every tear watered the soil of restoration. Every disappointment became material for your rebuilding. You were never being punished. You were being positioned. There's a rhythm in God's mercy that reverses what life tried to break. He doesn't just return what was taken, He refines it. What the enemy meant for destruction, heaven rewaves into destiny. You've seen doors close, people leave, seasons die, and yet, through it all, you remained. That endurance became the currency of your restoration. As the prophet Joel recorded, chapter 2, verse 25, I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Do you feel the power in those words? Chosen one, years not moments, not things, but years. The very time you thought was lost beyond recovery. Heaven now redeems. What felt like decay will give birth to abundance. The same soil that saw your sorrow will soon witness your song. This restoration is not only external, it's internal. God is returning to you pieces of yourself you didn't realize were missing. Joy you buried under duty. Wonder you traded for survival. Confidence you handed over to rejection. The restoration begins, not in your hands, but in your heart. When the heart heals, everything else follows. You will wake one day and realize the heaviness has lifted. You'll laugh again, not the forced laughter of politeness, but the deep, unguarded laughter of freedom. You'll walk into rooms that once intimidated you and feel peace instead of pressure. You'll notice how things that used to break you now bow to you. That is restoration in motion. Heaven is restoring not only what was stolen, but how you see yourself. The years of being undervalued taught you to settle for less, to shrink, to survive. But restoration breaks that illusion. You are being reminded of your worth, of the divine royalty in your bones. The same hands that shaped galaxies are now rebuilding your future. Restoration, however, doesn't always arrive in the form you expect. Sometimes, instead of returning what was lost, God replaces it with something infinitely better. The person who left isn't coming back, but peace is. The job that ended won't return, but purpose will. What's returning is not imitation, it's elevation. The losses you've endured have purified your capacity to receive. You no longer cling to things for validation. You no longer confuse noise for purpose. You've learned to recognize what's real. And because of that, heaven can trust you with more. Restoration without wisdom becomes repetition, but restoration with wisdom becomes revival. There is also restitution happening around you. Situations that once embarrassed you will become testimonies. Conversations that once broke you will become bridges. Places that once hurt you will become holy ground. You will revisit the same roads, but this time with peace instead of pain. Heaven's restoration doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. Chosen one. Your story is shifting from survival to significance. Every wound that tried to define you is turning into a window of grace. You are being restored publicly because you endured privately. What was whispered in the dark will soon shine in the daylight of fulfillment. And when restoration arrives, remember this: it is not a reward for perfection, but for perseverance. You didn't earn it by never falling. You qualified for it by always rising. The crown you wear is not for victory, won easily, but for faith kept fiercely. So stand still for a moment and breathe. What once broke you is now bowing before you. The tides are reversing. The famine is ending. The light you see at the horizon isn't imagination, it's manifestation. The chapter of loss is closing, and the pages of renewal are opening beneath heaven's handwriting. You are not going back to what was, you are stepping into what always should have been. The years that devoured you will now deliver you. This is not the end of your story, it is the redemption of it. Chosen one. Restoration has found you. The final call. Remember and reign. Chosen one. This is the moment heaven has been leading you toward, the awakening of full remembrance, the long journey through storms and silence, the seasons of breaking and rebuilding, the whispers in the dark. All of it has been guiding you to this point. The moment where you finally see yourself as heaven has always seen you, not wounded, not wandering, but reigning. You have walked through every terrain: fire, desert, wilderness, and mountain, and each one carved something sacred into your spirit. You learned endurance from the fire, patience from the desert, discernment from the wilderness, and perspective from the mountain. What once confused you now feels like clarity. What once felt random now reveals divine precision. There's a stillness surrounding you now, isn't there? A deep, quiet strength that doesn't need to prove anything. That's the mark of those who have remembered. You no longer chase purpose, you carry it. You no longer beg for affirmation, you embody it. Heaven is not distant, it moves through you, speaks through you, breathes through you. You were always meant to reign, but not the way the world defines it. Reigning in the kingdom is not about ruling others, it's about mastering yourself. It's about governing your heart with wisdom, leading your emotions with peace, and commanding your atmosphere with faith. You reign not because you dominate, but because you align. The Word of God declares in the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 6, "And he has made us kings and priests to serve his God and Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever." No, that is your identity, both royalty and reverence, both authority and humility. You are a king who serves, a priest who walks among people carrying heaven's fragrance. You are not one or the other, you are both. Heaven designed you to balance power with purity. This is what remembrance does. It restores the balance that fear tried to distort. You are no longer tossed between pride and shame. You stand anchored in truth. You know who you are, not by title, but by presence. You carry peace as your authority and love as your weapon. You see, every chosen one who reaches this place learns the same truth. Remembrance is not a destination, it's a rhythm. You don't remember once and stay awakened forever. You practice remembering daily. The world will still try to numb you, distract you, lure you back into forgetting. But now you know better. Now you know what forgetting costs. You will face moments when you feel the pull of doubt again. The whispers will come, "You're not enough. You've failed. You're too late." When they do, don't panic. Recognize them for what they are, echoes from a defeated enemy trying to reclaim ground you no longer live on. Silence them with truth. Remind yourself that memory is your victory. You were never meant to fight with exhaustion again, but with awareness of the covenant that binds you, the fire that refines you, the authority that crowns you. Awareness of the fact that you have already won battles you haven't yet stepped into because heaven goes before you. Chosen one. Look back one last time, not to dwell, but to witness the evidence. Every valley that tried to break you became a bridge. Every wound became wisdom. Every loss became lesson. You have not been wandering aimlessly. You have been walking a spiral staircase toward revelation. With each turn, you rose higher. Until now, at the summit, you can finally see the pattern heaven always saw. This is why you had to endure misunderstanding. This is why you walked alone for so long. God was not punishing you. He was personalizing you. Your journey was not a copy of anyone else's, because your assignment is not a copy. You are a custom creation for a divine cause. Now comes the part heaven has waited for. Reign, not in arrogance, but in alignment. Reign through peace that confuses the anxious. Reign through joy that outlasts sorrow. Reign through kindness that disarms cruelty. You are heaven's ambassador wrapped in human skin. And your reign begins when you live as if you truly believe it. But reigning also requires rest. The crown doesn't weigh heavy when you walk in grace. Authority without rest becomes striving, and striving leads to burnout. The chosen ones reign not by doing everything, but by being everything God called them to be. Your stillness is not laziness, it's confidence in divine orchestration. Chosen one. The journey has come full circle. You have walked through remembrance and fire, through silence and revelation. You have heard heaven's voice and felt its breath on your soul. And now, as you stand clothed in light, there remains only this to live it out. Carry this truth gently, but walk in it boldly. Let your life become a message louder than words, a reminder that heaven still moves through human hearts. The world needs the light you've rediscovered. Someone's breakthrough may be waiting on your obedience. Someone's healing on your testimony. If these words stirred something deep within you, if you felt seen, understood, and called again, then let your heart respond in gratitude. Like this message, as a way of saying, I choose to remember, share it as an act of faith. A spark that might ignite another soul still lost in shadow. And yes, subscribe, not for numbers, but to stay connected to this stream of light that keeps calling the chosen ones home. Before you go, leave a comment, your reflection, your awakening, your whisper of faith, because every word you release becomes part of this great echo of remembrance. Heaven is still speaking, and you, chosen one, you are still the answer.